My name is Natalie Fritz, and I am the Archivist and Outreach Director for the Clark County Historical Society, and this is one of our Wednesday virtual programs that I've been doing since 2020. We were doing 2 a month, and now we're down to at least 1 a month on various local history topics. And today's topic is a special one. We have a special guest, retired Detective Dan Dewine. Detective Dan Dewine, who's going to talk to us about the Dingledine case from 1937. See, I can, there we go. As with all of our other Zoom programs, this one is recorded so people can go back and find it later. We put this up on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel, so this shows up in searches. So this becomes a resource for future researchers to find more information about local history topics. And we encourage people to ask questions and add to the story, depending on what we're talking about. If you know about something that we talk about in any of these Zoom programs, we ask that you share, because that gets added to the history and helps people better their understanding of things. So we encourage people to do that. I will be monitoring the chat if people have questions that they want to put in the chat. You may be able to unmute yourself, but I'll also be tracking any background noise or anything. So you may get muted at some point if I pick up background noise, but you're welcome to unmute yourself if you have a question or anything that you'd like to clarify. But I'd like to turn it over to our retired Detective Dan Dewine. You just retired earlier this year. Is that correct?
Yes. I retired on St. Patrick's Day of this past March.
Oh, well, congratulations, and
Yes.
I hope you're getting to do some fun things in your retirement. And I thank you for joining us tonight to share with. I know that you've always been the unofficial official historian for the Springfield Police Department, and I know that this was a story that you can you know a lot about. So I'm glad that you can share information with everybody tonight.
Yeah. I started out as a police cadet from 1977 to 1980 in the old police department there on Center Street, and left in 1980, was rehired as a police officer in 1992, and just currently, like I said, just retired this past March in 2023, 31 years. Combined time, 32 years, 8 months, but spent the last 27 years on the department in the Detective Bureau, working crimes against persons, doing robberies, homicides, ag burglaries, a little bit of everything. I got interested in the about 1996 with doing some of the history for the department, as far as going back and getting information on all the chiefs of police since 1867. And then was interested in doing little bios on the 9 officers killed in the line of duty here in Springfield. And that's how I got started. With the Dingledine case, it's an interesting case because of everything that occurred that day. Also with the sheriff's department, the police department combined with the investigation ending up out there in Crystal Lake where the shootout occurred. I found an article on the internet from Scott Souther that really details everything that occurred that day and until the time of the executions. So I thought I'd read a little bit about that if nobody has ever read this, so we can get started, and then we can go through some of the photographs and everything that I collected through the years. On September 3rd of 1937, a chain of events was set into motion that would ultimately claim the lives of 6 men. On September 2nd, 1937, Harry Chapman of Chicago received a wire from William Cornett of Hamilton to meet him at the cabin of Harry Dingledine in Crystal Lake in Ohio. His son, Henry Dingledine, had met the other 2 men at the London Prison Farm in Madison County, Ohio. where they each were serving time for various crimes, including bank robbery, murder, forgery, and bootlegging. They were all paroled Chapman to Illinois, Cornett because he was sick, and Henry Dingledine on an early parole after completing only 2.5 years of a 25-year sentence. On the morning of September 3rd, 1937, Cornett, Chapman, and Henry Dingledine drove to Springfield, where they encountered Robert Smith, who was returning to the Wedge, his father's diner and drugstore, with $1,302.89 that he had withdrawn from the Lagunda National Bank. Upon returning to the Wedge, as Smith got out of his car, two of the men approached him from behind and pulled a gun to his back. They forced him back into the car and sped off down Main Street to Upper Valley Pike. After driving to Upper Valley Pike 3 to 4 miles, they forced him out of the car, took his money, and told him to walk into the woods. A third man picked up the two robbers and they drove away. This was a photograph of Mr. Smith's car that was left there on Upper Valley Pike. When Smith arrived back at the restaurant, Patrolman Martin Donnelly, Martin Randolph were already on the scene responding to the abduction and theft. Donnelly suggested that he suspected Henry Dingledine and several patrol cars headed to Crystal Lake on the suspected burglary. Deputies Frank Hare and Edward Fury met Donnelly and Randolph at the Dingledine residence. The deputies knocked on the front door but did not receive any answer. They knew someone was inside when they heard the clicking of the lock. The deputies decided to force an entry into the dwelling. They pried open a window and Donnelly and Fury climbed in. Although the blinds were drawn, they saw someone dash across the room into the kitchen. The officers ran towards the door, opened it, and saw a man with a gun aiming for them. Fury fired twice and stepped into the kitchen to be met by a volley of bullets from the passage to the cellar. Fury was riddled with bullet wounds and died instantly. In the meantime, Donnelly ran through the rear door and fired at the man in the kitchen. He was hit by bullets on his left hand and shoulder. He retreated to his patrol car to get more weapons. Hearing the gunshots, Randolph entered the house through the front door and was met by gunfire. He was wounded by bullets and a volley of shotgun pellets. Randolph later died on the way to Springfield City Hospital. While Donnelly was collecting more weapons, Henry and Harry Dingledine and Cornett escaped through the front door. Chapman left the cottage when the gunfire started. Hare spotted him and started to pursue him when he saw the other three come out the front door. Hare opened fire on them, killing Cornett instantly. Harry Dingledine was shot in the arm, but he and his father managed to jump into Harry's car and fled the scene. Chapman was apprehended when he broke cover and tried to flee. He was gunned down by the deputies, but survived his injuries. With the deputies seeking to find and arrest the Dingledines, the pair headed north. First, they stopped at the farm of Raymond Scher in DeGraff to inquire about getting a doctor for Henry. They forced Scher to go with them and headed to Marshall, Michigan. The Michigan doctor, seeing the seriousness of Henry's wounds, convinced the group to take Henry to the hospital. Henry was admitted to the hospital under an alias of Henry Downey. Upon hearing Henry Dingledine's story about how he was shot and having read about the shootout in Crystal Lake, Sheriff Kelly of Marshall suspected Downing might be one of the criminals being sought. He notified the Springfield police. Once the police confirmed that it was Dingledine, they brought Henry back to Springfield and placed him under heavy guard and shackled to his bed in the Springfield City Hospital. He refused to reveal to the police the location of his father. However, Harry Dingledine was captured on September 26, 1937 in Royal Oak, Michigan, where he was found sleeping in his car outside the home of his brother, Russell Dingledine. On September 18, 1937, Harry Chapman, Henry Dingledine were arraigned for first-degree murder of Fury and first-degree murder of Randolph and the robbery of Robert Smith. Both men pled not guilty. Harry Dingledine was arraigned on the same charges on September 29th and pled not guilty. All three men convicted of the charges and sentenced to die. During their trials, each man had blamed others and denied any part in the murders of Fury and Randolph. And they were then electrocuted on April 19th of 1939. The picture here on the screen now is a picture of Harry Chapman being brought up out of the weeds where he had been shot. In the picture is Captain Lawrence Abbott of Springfield Police Department, and Patrolman Alonzo Henderson is directly behind him. You can't really see him. Detective Vincent O'Brien and Harry Chapman. The gentleman that is toting the Thompson submachine gun, his name was never mentioned in any of the picture articles, so I have no idea if he is a deputy that was off duty or just somebody that joined in to assist in the shootout out there at Crystal Lake. This is an overview of Crystal Lake area, and actually the cottage, this cottage right here is still out there at Crystal Lake. I was out there a couple of years ago and went by, and it pretty much looks the same. There's a couple differences in the exterior, but this is the cottage where the shootout took place. This is the area where Chapman was wounded and fell. These are some of the pictures that were taken to recreate the shootout. You can see on the floor appears to be blood stains still from that day. This is a living room area. This is another photograph of the west side of the cottage looking eastbound. This is another picture of one of the rooms. As you can tell, it kind of looks like a ghost in the picture, but I have no idea. I guess it's just the photography. This is part of the outside the porch, the back porch looking east from the kitchen door. This is in another area where, looking north from the front door area where Patrolman Martin Randolph was fatally shot. This is a view from the cellarway in the kitchen looking south. This is Detective Lieutenant Walter Sweet showing where one of the suspects was in the cellarway when he opened fire on the deputies. And actually, Walter Sweet then later on in his career became chief of police. This is at City Hospital. This is Harry Chapman at one of the rooms at the City Hospital where he was wounded. There's still Harry Chapman in his bed at the cell at the Clark County Jail where he received shoulder wounds from the police bullets at Crystal Lake. And then this is a actual mugshot of Henry Dingledine, his mugshot back at some point in time when he was arrested. Then on September 5th, this is Chief George Abley with Henry Dingledine at the Oaklawn Hospital in Marshall, Michigan, where he was treated for gunshot wounds to his arm. And another picture of him in the hospital. Various pictures of him. The gentleman in the center is Sheriff BM that was sheriff at that point in time back in the 1930s for Clark County. And another picture of Henry. Now this another mugshot of the father, Harry Dingledine, that was taken in Springfield. And this is Harry Dingledine at Clark County Jail. And this is Harry Chapman, Clark County Common Pleas arraignment for 2 murder indictments with Sheriff Benham, Deputy Ed Baker, Patrolman Charles Scott in the background. This was on September 21st of 1937. And then most of the following pictures are actually pictures of the courtroom at Common Pleas Court, which is still the building which is standing there at Limestone, across from the post office. This would be the big courtroom, which was last occupied by Judge O'Neill. A whole lot has not changed in this courtroom. But this is the prosecuting attorney at that time was Jerome Nevius, which was also a relation of Judge Nevius that was just a judge and had retired and recently had passed away here in Clark County. These are different newspaper articles about them getting ready to go on trial, or the jury was selected. These are bystanders that are coming in to sit in the courtroom. This is getting ready to start the trial November 17th of 1937. This is the jury drawing for the trial. And this is jury selected for the Dingledine-Chapman trial. Everybody that was on the jury is listed by name here in this photograph. And these are some of the weapons that were used in the shootout at Crystal Lake. And mostly all revolvers, a shotgun. Like I said, the police officers did have a Thompson machine gun also. And then these are pictures from the trial. Special Deputy Sheriff Robert Jones is sitting there in the witness chair with a diagram of the cottage. In the background, I don't know if anybody's ever been in the courtroom there, but still hanging on the wall is the Lincoln letter, and which is still there, I guess a copy of it. Above it is a picture of Abraham Lincoln, which is no longer displayed in the courtroom. And then this is at the courtroom. And this is still appears to be jury selection. This is Detective William Roof, which was a Bertillon officer. He did mostly all the fingerprinting and photographing, and also crime scene photographs. It was Detective William Roof, and also Detective John Law at that time also was a partner with Detective Roof. And this is Miss Myrtle Davis, which was a student nurse at City Hospital on the witness stand, November 19th of 1937. Captain Lawrence Abbott, which he was in the earlier photograph when they captured Harry Chapman. Also Detective Lieutenant Walter Sweet, which was one of the officers reenacting the shootout there at the cottage. Detective Eli Bright. Clark County Deputy Sheriff Frank Hare on the stand when he's describing where he had found Fury there where he was gunned down. Witness Hugh Hemphill, who lived out there by the cottage, that gave his account of the Crystal Lake shootout. And Clark County Deputy Sheriff Frank Hare again, with a diagram of the inside of the cottage where the shootout took place. And this Captain T.F. Ballman, ballistic expert. And Chief George Abley on the stand. And Sheriff Pearl Kelly, that was the sheriff up in Michigan. Helen Harper, nurse from Marshall, Michigan, that cared for Henry Dingledine. These are, I guess, the different sheriffs throughout that had dealings with either the Dingledines or I guess Chapman or Cornett. These are the different attorneys. Vincent O'Brien. And then also Harry Dingledine, when he took the witness stand on December 12, 1937, where he stated, I wouldn't shoot anybody. And I guess he was giving his account of what happened there in the cottage. And again, Harry Dingledine on the witness stand. And the defense table. And defense counsel for Henry Dingledine. And Harry Chapman taking the stand. This is when the verdict on February 20th, 1938, when it came back, as all three of them were found guilty of the murders. And they received the death penalty at the Ohio State Penitentiary. And these are pictures of different ones being let out from the courtroom at certain times in the trial. The one on the far left is Henry, where this was during his arraignment and everything, where he had a full cast on his arm from his arm being shattered by the bullets. Harry in the middle, the father, and Chapman on the right side. And then the picture on the right side is Chapman and the Dingledines being let out from the back stairs of the old Clark County Jail, which is now the location where Municipal Court House is. And being placed in the cars for transport to the Ohio Penitentiary.
God bless them.
And then these are the photographs at the Ohio State Penitentiary before the electrocution of Harry Chapman, Harry Dingledine, and Henry Dingledine. Chapman was the first to be electrocuted on April 19th, 1939, followed by Henry, and then right after Henry, the father, Harry Dingledine. These are just pictures that I printed out of the old Ohio State Penitentiary. These were the inside were the cells, inmate cells. This was called the area of Bankers Row, I guess. They before their execution, of course, they tried to get the death penalty overturned, which it was not. These are cards, and like a business size cards that were handed out to people who were able to take part in the execution. Detective Eli Bright from SPD, Robert Jones. These are two that I had located, and I'm sure there were several others that went to the execution. This is the death house, which housed the electric chair. And that is what the electric chair looked like at the Ohio State Penitentiary, which was nicknamed Old Sparky, I guess. And afterwards, the Dingledines were brought back and were buried in New Carlisle. Harry Chapman is buried in a cemetery over in Columbus that set next to the old Clipper Stadium. I guess that was a cemetery that was used to bury people from the Ohio State Penitentiary at some point in time. But he does have a grave marker over at that cemetery that's next to the old Cooper Stadium. And those are the photographs. Is anybody have any questions or that I can try to answer?
Well, I just wanted to say something that I realized looking at this, that I must have had the dates wrong on some of the testimony pictures. They must have been in February instead of November. Some of the dates that I had back on the slide that said they were in 37, because it looks like the trial started in January, or they were doing jury selection at the beginning of February. But the dates, but you had prints of all of these pictures. We have the negatives from the Springfield News Sun stuff. So I just wanted to make sure I say that out loud for this recording, because I think that those dates must be wrong. They must be in 1938, so I don't want to confuse people.
Okay.
But if people wanted to do like specific research and look at all of the coverage, this was something that I did a few years ago, was printed all of the articles, because the prosecutor's office for Clark County was trying to do some displays of major cases that they had been a part of, and this was obviously one. So they got a lot of the pictures reproduced from the archives, which are the same ones that Dan has the prints of here. And at that time, I had went ahead and just printed all of the articles so that we could have them all in one location. So we do have a folder of them in order. And I'm thinking, this would be an easy thing for me to go ahead and scan and turn into a PDF now so that people can go through it. And so a lot of the pictures that are here show up in the newspaper on the microfilm. So if people wanted to read all of the details of the case, I think there's a lot more details of testimony and stuff that are in the articles here. But yeah, there's a few questions here in the chat that I can share with you. John asked if has there been another triple execution since or even before this?
Not to my knowledge. I know, I believe that this is the only father and son execution on the same day. But as far as triple execution for whatever crime of murder, whatever, not that I've found, no.
Another question is from Patty is, were these three men known criminals before they were involved in the robbery and killings?
Yes, they were. Yes, yes. Yeah, it said in the article that I read that bootlegging, murder, and bank robbery prior to this happening.
And I noticed the mugshot for Harry Dingledine was actually from the December before. It wasn't taken afterwards, so that was an earlier mugshot of his there.
Right. Yeah, I believe that the mugshots were from earlier time period.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that the police department has, like all mugshots taken? Do they keep those, or are they just? Is that something that's at the department?
They still have the old fingerprint files down there that are jam-packed with fingerprint cards that probably go all the way back to the maybe early 1900s. But you would have to go through each and every drawer. I mean, it would take time to be able to find, like, their mugshot would be pasted to their fingerprint cards. And so I don't know if they still have them there or not. Years ago, I was over at BCI and took the names over to BCI to check to see, if they would still have any of the old original fingerprint cards and everything. But they said that when they moved to the new building and everything, they kind of cleared house. And I can't remember what they said that was done with all the old cards, which, most of the people just about everybody would be deceased from that period of time. So
it'd be interesting to have a selection of those in our archive. So I wonder if they still have any around and are deciding they want to pitch them. We would take a handful just to have a selection in our archive to show people what they look like. If you want to pass that along to anyone still in the department.
Right.
I know that Wright State has a collection of Dayton area mugshot cards and fingerprint things from right. Their police department that they have a small selection of that are really kind of fun to look at.
I've actually got plenty of time on my hands now. I could probably go down and start going through the fingerprint files. Actually, when I was a police cadet, 77 to 80, we used to photograph and fingerprint people, and I know there's a lot of cards in there that have my signature on them from criminals and everything that were fingerprinted and photographed during that period of time. So, but I know back in the day when I was going through some of the files back there, they actually the fingerprint cards used to not have photographs with them, but they were actually printed on kind of like a translucent paper. I mean, you could see the prints and everything and like the names and all on them, but they weren't like cardboard like they are nowadays. So, but yeah, maybe I can get with the chief and ask her and go back and just start going through the files and pick out, ones that are interesting. Yeah.
There's a comment in the chat from David Rapp says it was interesting about the Thompson machine gun. They had a Thompson that was kept in the armory at the gun range at the public safety building. Rumor had it that Dillinger had stayed at the Dingledine residence. I had heard that Dillinger had stayed at a house right off of Broadway, was what I had heard. Have you heard about the Dingledine connection?
No, I think trying to think when Dillinger was killed. That was probably around 1935, I believe. Let me see something here real quick. I don't think there's a connection between the Dingledines and Dillinger. I know he when Dillinger came through New Carlisle and he robbed the bank there, and then was captured in Dayton. Dayton PD had taken a mugshot of him, and then he had robbed a place, I believe, in Lima, and then New Carlisle got caught in Dayton. Clark County wanted him put in their jail, and Lima wanted him. So Lima being the first place that he had robbed, they transported him to Lima, and that's when a group of guys that Dillinger was connected to that were serving time in a penitentiary escaped over in Illinois, I believe it was, came through Lima, ended up killing the sheriff and breaking Dillinger out of the jail in Lima. So, if Clark County would have had him here, that's a possibility that could have happened here. So, but
I know with the stuff Dillinger actually died in 34. I just looked that up. But
yeah.
Another connection, I know it's a different case, but the Dillinger connection that I had heard was that he had a girlfriend that lived in town and stayed with her. And I remember talking to my husband about this, that it's a house that no longer stands on Broadway, right before it dead ends into where Yellow Springs is rerouted, or Plum Street is rerouted now over by the hospital. Is what I had heard is where the house was that he had stayed in at some point. And we had a donation earlier this year, or maybe last year, that the woman, her father had recently passed, and he had a connection with Dillinger when he was in town as a very young kid, that they had him go somewhere and help break into the house to get something for them. And it wasn't until he was older that he realized that he had done illegal things for John Dillinger.
Right.
And so that was something that was not, as a young kid, had no idea. There's a question in the chat about the ballistic expert that was on the stand in the pictures from the FBI. And he asked if he was one of the earliest ones in the area.
That I'm not real sure. I know with ballistics and everything, I think that came about probably, I'm just throwing this out here, but probably in the 1920s, late teens maybe, where ballistics really came into play. But that I don't know about, with the gentleman that came, from the FBI for ballistics or anything. I don't know. And I know a lot of the items and everything, they used to have a storeroom at the Common Pleas Courthouse from old cases and everything. And I was able to go up through that and all the guns and everything associated with this case were gone. And that's probably, back in the day, a lot of your bigger cases and everything, once the case was over, the three guys were electrocuted. I would imagine probably some of the items were handed out you know, to different people, just as a collector's item, you know, from the shootout. So I know back, you know, in our storeroom at the police department, we have cases that go all the way back to the 1920s, on homicides, not only just police officers and everything, but all the homicides and everything that have happened here in Springfield. So there's you know, there's quite a few cases back there. So
I know, I was curious as far as with the ballistics of that, with it being a shootout, exactly, you know, if that was back then, if they were able to determine, you know, how many shots fired from where, what guns, and if they, you know, were, the fact that the 3 men were convicted, that they must have had enough evidence as far as who was doing the shooting,
right,
out there to
right.
be able to convict them.
Yeah. On another article that I found, the one gun that was in the pictures. Let me see where I can find it. Oh shoot!
Back one more, or
There is a German pistol in there, and that was brought in the article. It's the third one back from the right. And I guess it was brought up in that article that that would have been the weapon that would have killed Deputy Fury. But any of the others, I don't know. I just remember reading an article where they said that it was, I guess, this German-made pistol was the one that probably took the life of the deputy. The other one in the middle, the smaller semi-automatic handgun, is a Colt, what they call a Colt pocket pistol. It's hammerless, and I've actually have 2 of those, and a collection of my own. So, but the other weapons and everything all look like 38s, and then the shotgun, not sure, could be a 20 or 12 gauge, single shot.
Michael said that the pistol is a Mauser machine pistol, an automatic.
Yes, yeah, and that was the one that took Deputy Fury's life.
I know that, well, I had a question about reissuing of pistols within the department. I know that several years ago we had donated the one that had belonged to Martin Randolph, that was reissued, and given by Robert Scabla,
right?
Who had got verified that it had originally belonged to Randolph.
Yes.
Is that a typical thing for pistols or, you know, equipment within the department to be reissued to other, or
Yeah.
would they do it following a death still today?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I would say yes. Yeah. I mean, there's, you know, back then there were only so many guns that were bought through the department. When you mentioned the 38 Smith & Wesson that Mr. Scabla had, he was able to get a hold of the department years ago, and there's log books at the department that has everybody's name that's been, I think the books start out at 1885 maybe. Prior to that, I couldn't say, but doing the history work where I've actually, you know, come in contact with these books to look up names and everything. It lists every time they're promoted, every time that they're issued a piece of equipment, whether it be handcuffs, a badge. For years, badges were realigned every year due to retirement or people leaving. in new hirees. They would just realign the badges through seniority. Same way with the weapons and everything. I actually have in my collection, I've never traced it to see who carried mine, but the gun that you're talking about was purchased, I believe, in 1927. And I have one of those. It actually has on the back strap of the gun, it is stamped with Springfield police on the back. And that's doing a lot of the history work and everything. That for some reason, those guns that were purchased in 1927 are the only ones that have ever been stamped with Springfield police on the back of them, on the back strap. So
I know another thing we have related to the case is we have the handcuffs that were used during the transfer to the penitentiary for I think it might have been Chapman. I can't remember now which one it was, but
right.
Also that Mr. Scabla had.
Yeah. I actually knew Mr. Scabla from going to different police collector shows and everything, and he'd be there and show up to see what he could purchase and everything, whether it be badges or guns, patches, or whatever. But he did have a nice collection of items from the Dingledine shootout. I guess I had heard at one time also somewhere out there that I don't know if it was in a field or where, that actually another handgun was found in a field out there somewhere in Crystal Lake, which at the time it was found, it was in pretty bad shape and all, but I've never seen it. And I really can't remember who even was talking about it. And I don't know if it would have even been, associated with the shootout or not.
Well, I know you mentioned that you had done you've done biographies of the officers from the police department that were killed in the line of duty. Is that something that's available for that people can see? Is it something that's at the department, or
it's down at the department. We actually have plaques made that actually have the pictures of the officer and the bio that I wrote are displayed down there at the department. They actually have at the department, there's called the Rayner room for Greg Rayner, that was killed in the line of duty from the sheriff's department in the 70s. And down there we have a small mini museum down there. It was started by Jim Ullum and Carl Loney, which was a cousin of mine. They started the museum when Sergeant Ullum, when he retired. I kind of took over the display and added several things to it. There's a uniform down there that was worn by Charles Collis, which was the first police officer shot and killed in line of duty back in the early 1900s. There's a uniform on display that would have been the type of uniform that was worn by Martin Randolph at the time of his death, and several other things, photographs, some badges, just different things that are in the room.
How do you get to that in the? Is this in the public safety building, or?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's a room between the sheriff's department and the police department.
Is it accessible to the public or not so much?
I guess it can be. I would say that you would probably have to call or whatever to see if you can make arrangements to go in, to take a look at the display. People could get a hold of me and I can make arrangements, to be able to take somebody in.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right. it's a really interesting, sensational case that I mean that happened so long ago now.
Yes, yeah.
And
yeah, the 1930s was a violent time for law enforcement. You can get on the website for the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., and go through different time periods. And the 1930s with the Depression and everything, all the public enemies that were wanted by the FBI at that point in time. With Bonnie and Clyde, Babyface Nelson, Pretty Boy Floyd, Machine Gun Kelly, on and on, John Dillinger. It was just it was a terrible time for law enforcement back then, because most of the departments were outgunned because all the criminals would go into the armories of like the military armories and everything, break into there and would steal the BARs, which was a fully automatic rifle, Thompson machine guns, just all kinds of weapons. So then, you would come across all these departments that would just have their sidearms or maybe a shotgun, and that was their defense. So
I do have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
I would like to know, Mr. Dewine, how did we contact you if we would like to see the museum? I am Frank Hare's granddaughter.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yes.
Do you live here locally or no?
No, I don't. I live in Tennessee, but I do come back to
okay.
Springfield 3 or 4 times a year.
Okay. I can give you my number.
Uh-huh.
I say I can if you wanna contact, I can connect you guys next week. If you contact the Historical Society, I can pass along his information for you.
Yeah, she can
Okay.
she can pass my number to you. That's fine. Natalie can.
Yes, I actually have Frank Hare's service badge.
Oh,
it was
okay.
given to me by a cousin this past last month at the family reunion.
Oh, okay.
And my sister and I think we tried to get in to see the museum, but for some reason we didn't get connected right or something, But yes, like next week, that'd be fine if I could connect the young lady there, connect us. So I'm going to try to come up in October.
Okay.
Okay, I'll put the phone number for the Historical Society in the chat if you can see that.
Okay. Yes, I think tonight was very interesting.
So, well, thank you for joining. There's a couple more comments in the chat. Patty, who's one of our volunteers who's been working on inventory stuff down in collections, she said she just went through a box down on the that has a wooden cup made from old Sparky that we apparently have in our collection. So she'll look for that again tomorrow and see if we have any more detail about that. And John asked, he asked how much of early police department arsenals were confiscated weapons.
I mean, I really can't say, but back in the day, weapons were treated differently. Nowadays, I mean, everything that's collected is put on property receipts and everything, the property rooms, which for all for the departments and everything. It just depends, I guess. I know a lot of things that were confiscated by officers and everything would show up in their collections. I know dealing with some of the older officers from here back in the day, family members. I mean, they had in their collections that they carried brass knuckles, just all kinds of different, switchblades, that they would take off people, just different things that, that just property was just handled a little different back then, I guess. So, but, mainly, like I said, the sheriff's department still has one of the Thompson machine guns in their armory from back when all this happened. Springfield police, back in the 70s when I was a cadet, had just, I think, sold theirs off. They had some rifles and a couple Thompsons and everything. And they were just, back then, were forming the, what they nowadays are the SWAT teams. So they were selling off some of the older departmental weapons to buy, newer weapons, newer rifles and things like that for the SWAT teams. So.
Well, if anyone has any other questions, you can speak up or put it in the chat real quick. We can get to them. Dan, I want to thank you for coming tonight and sharing this story.
Maybe on another case we can dig and find something and
would love to be able to share. Our upcoming programs that we have, our October program is going to be about the Springfield burying ground. So we'll have some people from the committee and people that were involved with the restoration and renovation of that space to talk a little bit about the project. So it's tentatively set for October 18th, but it could be the weekend before or after, depending on how crazy this next month is as we get ready for our Wizards event at the end of September. So so it'll depend on how much time we have to get prepared for that next program. But that's the theme for October. And then we're working on November and December's theme. So Dan, we'd love to have you again. We'll see if there's other. I know there's definitely other interesting cases that we could look at and talk about. So, but thank you again, and thanks everybody for coming tonight. And we'll see you next time. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.